and welcome to another Zoo Notable. I'm PJ with ZooFit, and I got a disclaimer for you. Today's Zoo Notable is going to be, it's a little bit different from my others, and that is, today is Harry Potter's birthday, or as I'm filming it, is Harry Potter's birthday. And I thought, since this is my favorite fandom, I wanted to celebrate it with a special Zoo Notable. So I'm delving into one of the books that's actually from the Harry Potter series, one of their textbooks for Care of Magical Creatures class, Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them. Now this book is written by Newt Scamander, a magizoologist, and the protagonist of a film series of that same name. Now, when the original version of Fantastic Beasts came out in 2001, I was just starting out in my career as an animal care specialist. And I was enthralled by all these little subtle tips and hints that J.K. Rowling gave about what each Fantastic Beasts were and maybe their non-magical counterparts. Throughout my 15-year career, I worked with many different animals, including owls, reptiles, marine animals, elephants, and goats. And I saw for myself just how special every single creature really is. And I couldn't help but connect these animals in my life to the creatures of my very favorite book series of all time. And this gave me an idea. What if these regular creatures were actually magical creatures in disguise? And what if this is some kind of a disguising charm to hide mythical creatures from muggles? And what if, like, the thunderbird is really a golden eagle? Or that if a kelpie is really a sea dragon? I mean, the resemblance is striking. And I love making all these comparisons, and I discovered this is actually a wonderful way to connect Harry Potter fans and fellow witches and wizards to conservation in a fun and actually meaningful way. Because it's really cool how well these magical creatures pair off with non-magical animals. But these animals also are most often are endangered, and so they need our help. And if we are to make a difference in other people's lives and the world, we have to meet people where they are. We can show them how magical our own world is and how fantastic all creatures are. So this is my top 10 fantastic beasts found around the world. So starting off my list with number 10 is the Chinese fireball. That's the only Asian dragon, according to Newt Scamander. This is one of the most beautiful dragons in the wizarding world. But to muggles, it may appear slightly unimpressive as this tiny, still striking Chinese crocodile lizard. And no one would ever guess that this species is really a fierce and deadly predator. But for their difference in size, there are some distinct similarities. And the Chinese fireball is described as a beautiful scarlet color with golden spikes around its snub-snouted face. And the Shitasaurus, or the scientific name for the crocodile lizard, are also reddish in color, sometimes with a coppery or golden tint. They are quite beautiful, and I quickly fell in love with these animals when I was a temporary keeper at Woodland Park Zoo. In fact, this is easily my favorite reptile. And early on, I just knew, as soon as I met them, that these were the hidden form of the Chinese fireball. Now, Shitasaurus are classified as endangered. Their main threat is habitat destruction, which you're going to see is a common thread for the animals on this list. And as our human populations increase, we inadvertently and even sometimes purposefully encroach on wildlands and forests to create homes, farms, and economic ventures through logging and deforestation. So the fireball is affected by deforestation. It's also affected by the pet trade. And if you want to help save Chinese fireballs, while they may look like fun pets, make sure that they are captive raised and not wild captured. And it might be just best to leave this dragon in its natural environment. And number 9 on our list is the Demiguise. Now, upon first reading the description of the Demiguise, it's easy to assume that the hidden form for this magical creature, which provides wizards with invisibility cloaks, would be the orangutan. But I believe that this animal which hides the Demiguise is actually a lesser ape known as the gibbon. And if you look at the film Fantastic Beasts, the similarities are clearer. While demiguises do have long hair like orangutans, the coloration is off. Now, color doesn't always dictate what animal is a magical creature, but in this case, I saw a better comparison to the lesser known animal than the orangutan. Now, ironically, orangutans and gibbons both face the same main threat. That's deforestation in their environment for timber and for palm oil. Now, gibbons populations have decreased by 80% due to unsustainable practices to extract timber. Now, demiguises can become invisible, which makes them very valuable. But if we don't protect these creatures, they will disappear for good. So you can save gibbons and other Asian species by purchasing products made from sustainably sourced ingredients or avoiding palm oil in your food. And coming in at number 8 is the phoenix. And you would think that this magnificent creature would be invincible, but unfortunately, the phoenix needs our protection now more than ever. Now, placed under the charm to disguise it as the largest eagle in the world and hidden among the Amazon rainforest, I think wizards thought that the phoenix would be safe from harm. Unfortunately, as Muggle and wizard populations continue to grow, more and more animals, both magical and non-magical, are facing extinction. The harpy eagle is one of the most magnificent birds on Earth. It's a bucket list item for most birders, but their sightings are becoming more and more rare. So even though the phoenix is a stark red and gold color and the harpy eagle is significantly more dull with their gray and white, this is a perfect match in other ways. Getting an up-close view of Fox and Chamber of Secrets, you can see that the phoenix has a crest and definitely a beak of a powerful raptor. And in a profile, it might be even hard to tell the difference between the harpy and the phoenix without that coloration. Now, the harpy isn't the largest flying bird, but it is definitely king of the Amazon. Harpies are at the top of the food chain, being strong enough to nab a sloth from the trees and carry more than 20 pounds as they fly. This king of birds is definitely the phoenix in disguise. To save the phoenix from going up in flames without a resurrection, we can do our part to save the rainforest where the phoenix reigns. Reducing our fast food can have a profound impact on the environment, particularly in the Amazon rainforest, and our health. Eating a little less meat, using less paper products, recycle and reduce your waste will give phoenix a chance to rise once again. And number 7 on our list is the horned serpent. So in 2016, J.K. Rowling introduced Potter fans to the American version of Hogwarts, Ilvermorny. Now, Ilvermorny has 4 houses just like Hogwarts, but their house mascots are magical creatures from North American lore. And when I took the sorting quiz on Pottermore, I was placed in the horned serpent house, the house which favors scholars. Now, I wanted to learn more about my house mascot and share some horned serpent pride. The animal I most attribute to the horned serpent is a special salamander known in the United States as the hellbender. Now, hellbenders are the largest amphibian in North America. I'm particularly fond of their nickname, the snot otter. I mean, that's obviously a magical creature if I've ever heard one. However, hellbenders or snot otters or horned serpents aren't doing particularly well in their natural environment. Mostly pollution and habitat destruction from damming streams and rivers are their main threat. Now, luckily, I'm not the only person who finds snot otters appealing. Many zoos in the United States are breeding hellbenders and release these captive-born horned serpents back into the wild. But just because there is success in breeding programs does not put us in the clear of doing our part. Protecting waterways is key to protecting this magical creature. Watershed health is important for healthy waterways and healthy hellbenders. So use chemicals sparingly, including fertilizers and cleaners. Buy organic food from farmers who don't use pesticides, herbicides, or other chemicals. They may have a scary name, but losing this species from our waterways would be even scarier. So let's do our part. Save the horned serpent, save the hellbender. And at number 6 is the Ukrainian ironbelly. So in 1989, Douglas Adams, author of The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, ventured with friend and famed zoologist Mark Carradine to search of some of the most unique and endangered species on the planet. The adventures these two experienced first became a radio program for BBC and then a book titled Last Chance to See. Now on their journey, Carradine and Adams ventured to the land of real dragons. The largest lizard in the world is found in only one place, along 5 remote islands in Indonesia, in KOMODO National Park. Now the Ukrainian IRONBELLY is quite a fierce creature. The largest of all dragons, this species has quite a reputation for destruction. They have been carefully watched by magizoologists for hundreds of years. Hiding them in a remote island in Indonesia under the guise of the Komodo dragon seemed the safest bet to protect them from muggles and vengeful wizards. However, as we've already mentioned many times before, human populations are encroaching everywhere. The attacks on humans are still considered rare incidences, but as human presence increases in territory designated for IRONBELLYs, incidents are on the rise. Even under its disguising charm, the Komodo is considered dangerous with a strong, venomous bite and sharp teeth. Now, with their habitat and prey dwindling in Indonesia, Komodos are at risk and considered vulnerable. There are estimated to be less than 2,500 left in the wild. Now, fortunately, the Komodo is quite an attraction for ecotourism. Thousands of people travel to Indonesia specifically to see wild dragons. Now, this tourism, when done sustainably and safely, under the watchful eyes of magizoologists, obviously, it provides economic incentive for local people to protect this precious and beautiful creature. And this is an important lesson for conservation of magical and non-magical creatures. Teaching the native cultures that these animals are worth more alive than dead is essential if we want them to survive our modern society. Now, you can help conservation efforts by supporting ecotourism wherever you travel. Visit a zoo or a nature museum during your vacation, or another organization which protects and preserves wildlife. Make our magical creatures worth more to the economy as living, thriving animals, and let there be dragons for generations to come. And coming at number 5 are the merpeople. The stories say that when Columbus made his way into the Caribbean, he wrote in his journal that he saw a mermaid, but it wasn't as pretty as I had been led to believe. Now, most historians assume that the animal he actually saw was the West Indian manatee. Manatees are in the order Sirenia, which is directly related to mythological creatures from the Odyssey who lured sailors to their death. And the word manatee literally translates into women's breast, which is again referring once again to mermaids. So it comes as no surprise that this creature is really merpeople in disguise. The manatees might seem an odd choice for merpeople, but perhaps that is just the point. Perhaps they chose an animal so far from their own appearance and demeanor that no one would suspect the animal's true identity. The manatees themselves have been the poster child for endangered species for decades, and honestly, it might have even paid off. When I was part of a rescue and rehabilitation team for manatees in Florida, there were roughly only 3,000 manatees in local waterways. Today, experts believe that number is up to 13,000. Now, this is mostly due to very strict boating, fishing, and water recreation laws surrounding manatee habitats. That may annoy some boaters, but in the long run, protecting manatees provides healthier rivers and waterways for water recreation. Now, things are definitely looking up for manatees, but they're still not 100% in the clear. Recently, the biggest threat to manatees and other Florida marine life is the red algae blooms. Sugar plantations and livestock farms are the main culprits. The runoff of polluted waters empties into estuaries, which leads to the sea. The problem has become much worse over the last few years. And it's clear that merpeople may be a fiercely independent society, but they still need our help. We can do our part to create a healthier waterways for manatees, merpeople, and even for us. And coming in at number 4 is the ERUMPENT. Now, ERUMPENTs are not a subtle creature with a horn that can pierce almost any material, and that kind of whole exploding fluid thing These beasts are up there with dragons on the danger scale. Now, from a distance, people would assume these were just regular rhinos, but more and more we're getting closer to wild erumpents, and those dangers increased. So wizards moved the erumpents off the Great Plains of Africa to remote areas in, once again, Indonesia. I guess they thought this was this magical place that no one would ever find. They disguised them as the elusive JAVAN rhino. Now, unfortunately, this rhino is the most endangered of the 5 rhino species, with only an estimated 67 left on the planet. Now, once found all throughout Southeast Asia, JAVAN rhinos are now relegated to the Ujung Kulon National Park in Java, Indonesia. And they are well protected in the region by dedicated zoologists and rangers, but the area is much too small for long-term survival of this species. What will save the erumpent from going extinct is proving once again that they are worth more to the economy as a living and thriving animal. Poaching has long been a threat to most rhino species, as well as habitat destruction. But shifting our mentality to serve rhinos and help them thrive is a simple task. Not necessarily easy, but indeed simple. What we buy matters, both for food consumption and any other product. Now, while we would probably never buy something made from rhino horn, we often buy products which contribute to further fragmentation of rhino habitat, such as palm oil. Now, palm oil is in far more than just our food products. It's in our health and beauty, our household, even pet food and automotive products. Making choices that clearly state that we value the environment and all the creatures which call it home supports a message that erumpents and rhinos are important. We want them around for generations to come. Number 3 on the list is the centaur. Now, centaurs are the only creature who were granted being status, but preferred to remain beasts. Now, regardless of their preferences, centaurs demand wizards' respect. They're highly intelligent, well-versed in magical arts, such as healing, divinations, and astronomy. The centaurs don't view wizards in high regard, and they tend to stay out of wizards' affairs. But when it became clear that the centaurs needed added protection from muggles, they agreed to hide under the guise of the last wild horse species, the PRZEWALSKI'S horse. Now, living along the Mongolian steppes of the Gobi Desert, these horses are affected by climate change, habitat degradation, and low genetic diversity. They are extinct in the wild, except for a few reintroduction sites in Mongolia, China, and Kazakhstan. If it weren't for zoos stepping in to save the species, they would have been wiped out in the 1960s. Because of Muggle zoo breeding programs, there are now roughly 1,900 PRZEWALSKI'S horses alive. Now, since climate change can have an effect on the environment for wild centaurs, it is important to do what we can to reduce our carbon footprint. If you're able to ride broomsticks or portkey with other wizards instead of using, flue powder, which has a high carbon footprint, you can make a positive impact on PRZEWALSKI horses. Reducing your meat intake also cuts down carbon emissions, and being responsible energy users, turning off your lights as you leave the room, and turning off all electronics before going to bed. Now, centaurs may not like us and humankind, but in this instance, they do depend on us for their survival. So let's do our part and save centaurs. All right, we've got our top 2 spots. Number 2 is the NIFFLER. And ever since the NIFFLER scurried onto the screen in the film version of Fantastic Beasts, many people have tried to peg this non-magical counterpart. And after doing some digging, I found the true non-magical disguise of the adorable NIFFLER. There may be little physical similarities, but then again, merpeople look absolutely nothing like manatees. So looks aren't everything. Instead of physical characteristics, I found a different and much more intriguing comparison between NIFFLERs and the most trafficked mammal on the black market, the pangolin. Pangolins are a smallish animal found in Africa and Asia. There are 8 species of pangolins, and all of them are critically endangered. Their biggest threat is also their link to the wizarding world. Now, NIFFLERs are known for detecting treasure as they are attracted to shiny objects. This makes them incredibly valuable animals. Now, pangolins don't find treasure, but their scales are considered highly prized in many Asian countries. Their meat is also considered a delicacy in Asia, and pangolins are believed to have healing properties. So they are in themselves a treasure. The true irony is that while pangolins are the most trafficked wild animal in the world, most people don't even know that they exist. As I've mentioned to many people in the past, talking about magical properties of animals, pangolin scales, just like rhino horns and bear bladders, don't hold special healing properties. Their scales are made of keratin. It's the same material as our nails and our hair. To understand, appreciate, and respect all creatures and environments is to see their true power and their magic. They only possess that magic as long as they are alive. Learning about our wild and wonderful world is the best way to protect our favorite magical creatures. Appreciating all animals, both magical and non-magical, is key to making the world a better place for them to live. Simply reading about pangolins being nifflers in disguise and becoming intrigued by this fascinating animal will bring awareness to the issue and can be the start of something truly magical, making a difference in our world. So nifflers are a treasure to behold, and we can't let them disappear without a fight. So what will you do to save your favorite fantastic beasts? All right, we have our top 10. We're coming down to our last one. Number 1 is the crumple-horned snorkack. All right, so I'm kind of cheating here. Crumple-horned snorkacks aren't even mentioned by Newt Scamander in his Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them. But that is what makes this story quite incredible. This is a mythological creature within a realm of mythological creatures. Now, Scamander never found the crumple-horned snorkack, and thus he didn't include it in his book. Most wizards don't believe the snorkack even exists, but I think it does, and I have discovered why no one could find them. The animal which protects the crumple-horned snorkack is a rare species of antelope typically found in the northern desert regions of Africa. Only this animal was declared extinct in the wild in 1980. So for 35 years, the only place to see the scimitar-horned oryx was in zoos, muggle zoos, where most witches and wizards don't normally venture. So here's my theory. Crumple-horned snorkacks are so valuable to wizards that magizoologists hid them from the wizarding community after a huge decline in population. In fact, I think disguising the snorkack was what inspired the wizarding government to extend similar protections and charms to other magical creatures on this list. But by disguising the snorkack as the scimitar-horned oryx, they didn't keep careful track, and muggles started hunting the oryx for their horns. So muggle zoos started taking in oryxes and hoping of breeding them and displaying them, never realizing that they had a magical creature in disguise. In 2016, scimitar-horned oryx were released in the wild deserts of Chad, the first in over 35 years. These 23 individuals were all captive bred in muggle zoos, but I firmly believe it wasn't just muggles attending this historic event. In fact, I believe there are 2 specific wizards attending that release. That would be Luna Lovegood and Rolf Scamander. Now, Luna Lovegood, our beloved favorite Ravenclaw and the believer in this crumple-horned snorkack, marries no other than the grandson of the author of Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them. Coincidence? Yeah, I think not. I think these 2 were destined to end up together just so they could witness the reintroduction of a fantastic beast the wizarding world forgot existed. Now, just because snorkacks are back in the wild doesn't mean they're in the clear. They are still considered vulnerable, and we must do what we can to protect them. Again, awareness and education is key to their survival. The regions of Africa that this oryx are found is highly susceptible to the negative effects of climate change. So doing our small part to reduce our carbon footprint is the least we can do to ensure the snorkack doesn't become a myth once again. Alright, so there's my picks for my favorite fantastic beasts that actually exist. What do you think? Are these truly magical creatures? Let me know your thoughts and connect to the animals in a fun and positive way. And if you enjoyed this note, you can check out the illustrated version of Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them. Make even more connections between the wizarding world and our world with hundreds of magical creatures. There are billywigs, mooncalf, graphorns, and so many more that we didn't even touch base on in this note. And if you're a fan of Harry Potter or an avid animal lover, this book is definitely for you. It can change the way you view animals in our lives and how we can use our geeky, nerdy love for Harry Potter to save the planet. And as always, take care of yourself so we can take better care of our community, our animals, and our planet. I'll see you next time.